There we are. We are back.
And we're live.
If it goes down again, my man, I'm probably just gonna snap, and that's basically what's gonna happen.
Kill
Here we
some
go
Kojiko
again.
people, eh?
I do not want to be that poor rep tomorrow.
All right, pop this chat out,
Boom.
close this window, and share that link on our Facebook page that is out there. And we're good to go. I will share this on my actual Facebook page, which I didn't do on the last stream.
So, man, thanks for having me back on the show. Mr. International Technical Difficulties seems to be me.
Yeah.
Which is ridiculous. But I'm going to get that fixed tomorrow. So tomorrow, some poor rep is going to hear my wrath. And we'll hopefully... I'll try to be nice. I usually try to be nice to those guys. As I'm sure with the COVID stuff, people have been crying. Oh, COVID, this and that. Like, okay, just fix my internet, man. Here's what I want.
You know, the sad part is it's not the guy's fault that you're going to be talking to. As much as you want to...
So as much as I want to rip him apart, I don't want to rip him apart. Because the poor guy's just trying to make a living, right? So
yeah, he has no control over it. He might give you a credit for it or whatever, or, do whatever he can to be nice to you, and that's up to him. But, like, as far as your internet fucking up, it's not that guy's fault. But...
It's not that guy's fault. He's probably not going to take it that hard. If he gives me a smart remark, he's probably going to hear it.
There we go. So how are things going now that we're actually live again?
Hey, you know what, man? Struggling. It's good, though. We are good. Hopefully, if it goes down again, that's it for the show this week, folks. We'll be back at a different time with better internet. I guarantee that.
Making the best of it.
I'm making the best of it.
Professionals.
We're trying. Oh, yeah, we'll use that word wisely, carefully.
Well, I mean, professionals will They'll make the best out of any situation, Professional comedian can make anything funny. You have a professional comedian on a radio show and here's the topic and it's their job to make it funny. And
that's what it is. It's just a spin, right? You just got like CNN. We just got to spin the news. That's all we do.
Spin the news. Yeah, with that said,
let's jump into it before the internet goes down again.
Yeah.
That's always my worst fear.
Speaking of internet outages, why don't we start with that story? Tuesday, the internet was down for about an hour, which is kind of similar to what just happened to you. Down for just the wrong period of time. Basically, this internet outage affected Google, Amazon, Reddit, Instagram, Twitter. Basically, every major company was down because of this. They all get their internet from a company called Fastly. They host the internet. That is the entire internet.
The whole internet is at Fastly. Isn't that crazy on how we're talking billion-dollar corporations, billions and billions and billions of dollars, just like my fans, billions of them. That's
the billions of fans you have in Japan.
Exactly. Wow, man, I'm huge in Japan. China, I'm pretty big in North Korea too. We'll get to that momentarily. But they're putting all their eggs in one basket.
Yeah. It is crazy.
Is that not crazy? Would they not have backup internet to backup internet to backup internet? Do you know what I mean? That just doesn't seem correct to me.
You would think, I don't own Google, and I'll never own a company that rivals Google, but I would think that rather than having your shit, I would almost think that Google has their own, Google is their own host. You would think at this point they own so much shit.
Well, same with Amazon, right? You would think Amazon, because I hear businesses run off Amazon servers.
Yeah. Amazon's getting into video hosting, and they've got mailing shit out. They've got Amazon Music. You don't have your own internet service? What?
What the fuck is that? You're the richest.
Stay in your lane. Get that sorted out first before you start going into other shit.
Your job is the internet.
Yeah.
That's your whole. It's not like you're going to mom and pop shop to buy a candy bar. No, dude, you seriously, your job is the internet. That's the only way you function is the internet.
So when this happened, a lot of people thought it was ransomware. People were holding the internet hostage sort of thing. Turns out, no, that's not it. One customer on this one customer on Fastly made some changes, and those changes caused a bug on 85% of their other customers. Just a little tweak. They changed a setting, and that caused an outage for the entire internet. Just shows how fragile this situation we're in is.
So if you and I are off of Fastly internet and we change, we're like, you know what? I want to go to 4K view. And it's boom.
I'm going to put it in dark mode. I like my messages to be black in the background instead of white. I'm going to put it in dark mode and boom, Google is down forever. ever.
Could you imagine? Dude, if I was that guy, I'd be doing every podcast. I'd be doing everything. I'd be like, I literally shut the internet down for an hour.
Yeah. So with that said, the internet's back. So pretty scary. Again, I hope that these people, you would think that there would be like a power outage when at my work, if the power goes out, there's a backup generator. You would think that if Fastly shuts down, there's another server somewhere, maybe on Amazon, maybe at Google headquarters. You would think,
but that is crazy. Imagine that. But just imagine in an hour how much revenue Amazon lost.
I can't even imagine how much that hour of downtime costed the internet. However, it's probably a little bit like gas prices. You know, people say, don't shop for gas on this particular day to really hit them where it hurts. But then you just get as much gas the next day. You know, you get an extra quarter tank because you didn't fill up the couple days earlier. You know?
Yeah, but like if you're on Amazon and you go to buy whatever, like let's just say it's a flashlight, you go, okay, I'll buy that flashlight because it's on sale, and you hit the buy now, and then it just goes, boo. You're like, maybe I don't want to buy that flashlight. Maybe the impulse buyer is gone on that case.
That's a good
point. Because that's what you want. Like at 4:00 in the morning when they send me an email saying this on my wish list is on sale and I buy it and I forget about it. Like that's happened to me more than once.
Now that I think about it, I'm just going to use my imagination rather than sign up for Brazers today.
Why? It's so true though. It's like, you know what? Today
now that I've had some time to free out the cobwebs up here, I don't really want to sign up for it. You know what? I'm good.
You know what? I don't need that Pornhub account because the free videos are still there.
Exactly.
It's fantastic.
Exactly.
That's what it is.
Maybe some good has come out of this internet outage. All right. So what else do we got here? Well, hey, let's stay on that. Jeffrey Toobin is back on CNN.
How crazy is that?
I know. This guy. Have you seen the interview that he did with this woman? What is her name? I have her name written down here. It is Ashley Camerodo.
Explain to me what was said in the interview with See, now what Jeffrey Toobin could learn, I learned from Jeffrey Toobin, I just faked an internet outage. Do you see what I did? That's all I did. I just faked an internet outage and just got it gone.
Fire one off.
Fire one off quickly in anger and then get back on.
All right, so he comes back. He's been gone for 7 months and starts off with this interview with Alyssa Temerado. It's pretty much painful to watch. Basically, they go over that in October, they were on this Zoom call and they went to a break, and I guess he flipped over his browser and thought that would end the call and his video would be closed. Unfortunately, that is not how the internet works. And in his short 15-minute break, he decided to fire one off. And of course, he was broadcasting to all of his coworkers, was fired after an investigation. This whole thing was what the interview was about, was reliving this, was asking this woman, had to ask him, like, what was it like when you found out that everybody saw you masturbating? These difficult questions, which, why would you want to do this? Why would you want to force a poor woman to have this conversation with this poor guy? And I don't know who I feel more sorry for.
Okay, I got more questions. You asked those questions. I got different questions.
What do you got?
So it's only a 7-month hiatus. Let's call it a hiatus.
Yeah.
If you jerk off in front of all your coworkers.
Yeah.
So that's not bad.
Sure.
2, why the fuck would you want to go back there?
Well,
would you not be embarrassed?
27 years. Yeah, I guess I wouldn't really want to go.
At that point, Jeffrey Toobin, you just retire. You do the Howard Stern show. You do everything else. You play that. That's your gimmick now. You just play that up. Now, the third question I have is when this guy's on a panel and he fucks up or he says something wrong or somebody wants to troll him, what are they going to say? Why don't you just go touch yourself? Like, why don't you know? Listen, you're jerk off. You literally just go do that again.
Yeah, this guy he will never be able to win an argument in his life. The trash talking, street talk bullshit back and forth. This guy just needs to retire from that. And again, like you said, 27 years, you're 3 years away from that 30-year retirement. Maybe it's time to just call it a career.
Dude, just mail it in. Okay, so don't order your cheeseburgers, man. Take a month off and you'll be able to retire.
I'm just saying, now that we're all vaccinated, this guy's going back in the office. You know that there's plenty of people going, hey, we're back in the office. Good to see. You know what? I'm just going to keep this to myself. COVID. I don't like to COVID. I'm still a little paranoid, you know?
Could you imagine you're an intern from, like, let's say UCLA, and you're getting your job at CNN. You're like, okay, an internship at CNN. First day show up, Jeffrey Tobin's assistant. You're like, come on. I'd walk in like hand lotion. Here you go, man. Sanitizer, gloves, everything. But only 7 months to exposing yourself to coworkers. That's good. That's good. That's what we got to know.
Well, I do have a little bit of sympathy for this guy because he didn't expose himself to he did. He accidentally exposed himself to his coworkers, but like he didn't like Louis C.K. these people. He thought he was in the privacy of his own home. It was a dumb move. I'm not defending it, but he didn't like do this on purpose. You know, it was a stupid move. It wasn't a malicious kind of thing, right?
But we know at this point, when you're on the phone, like, and I'll use speakerphone as an example. If you're driving, you take a phone call, you hang up the phone, you do not say anything about that person for a while because you know it's happened before where somebody said something that they didn't think that I was going to hear. I was like, fuck you, basically, right? Like, yeah, go fuck yourself. But no, like, like even the internet, like I am shutting stuff off. I'm making sure like everything coast is clear. Because you never know. And then usually, like, even when like I'm at work or whatever, I just usually make sure that the camera's taped or something's up because you never know. Russia's looking, man.
Yeah.
They're always looking at computers. Like, and we just said in the previous one, just make sure your shit's covered.
Yeah.
And the guy that age, you couldn't wait. Like washroom, your bedroom, 20, you could wait 5 minutes.
And that is the indefensible part. I mean, it's all pretty embarrassing, but like he's on company time. He's in a company meeting. He might think he's in the privacy of his own home, but he's on a Zoom call. He's obviously on the clock. They go, okay, 15 minutes, go have a bathroom break. And he's just like in front of everybody.
Hey guys, let's take a 5-minute break. Sweet. I can finish the video off. Oh, and he's just like, oh, like, dude, is he Jim from American Pie? Yeah, like exactly. That sounds like Jim right there.
The interview, though, if you see it, he says he's been in therapy for 7 months. He says, I'm trying to become the type of person that people can trust again.
Oh man, he's just probably working hand over fist to get everybody back.
His name is going to be Tubin is always going to be synonymous with public masturbation. That's all I can really take away from this.
But like, so here's the thing too, right? If the guy has a hammer on him like this big, he goes, show the video. I don't even care. He's like, please don't show the video. Please don't show the video. He's probably over there with it. He's probably just enjoying himself. Like, what a bastard. That poor bastard.
And the other thing is I do feel bad for this woman who has to, her job is to ask this guy what was it like to masturbate in front of all of your coworkers? And she's got to sit there and ask this to this guy.
Who's the idiot, the director that put a female in that position?
I don't know.
That guy needs to be fired too. If you want to come back to CNN, here's what you're doing. What's that? I'm going to give you prime time with Chris Como, yeah. Then I'm going to get Bill Burr to come in, and he's going to talk to you about it.
I was just going to say the guy I'd want to do is like a Joe Rogan, a guy who's going to he's going to tease me a little bit, but he's not going to get that uncomfortable about it. That would be the most comfortable way to do it.
Because this is how Joe Rogan's going to go. Man, you should try jerking off on Alpha Brain.
Yeah.
Did you ever
jerk
try
off on DMT?
You ever try and jerk off on Alpha Brain and DMT? Yeah. Oh my God. What happens? It's great.
He's literally 3 feet away from this woman, and she's like, how'd you feel jerking off in front of all your coworkers? Jeez, that's tough.
Just eye contact?
Yeah.
Say it with the straight face and just watch him fold.
Yeah. All right, man. I think that's all we got to say about that guy. Jeffrey Tubin, best of luck to you. Get one of these cameras that's got a light on it. That's the best advice I can give you.
Or like, our hands off to him, hands off. I don't even know how you can end that.
Yeah.
You know what, man? Let's stop jerking around and let's move on to the next story.
All right. What do we got here? Oh, well, let's go to one that I just sent you, actually, is this Republican congressman is trying to fight climate change it's nice to see that Republicans have come along to climate change. They've decided to try these new tactics that even liberals didn't think of, like changing the orbit of the moon.
That's no moon.
That's no moon.
No, dude. Okay, listen. Besides AOC saying that cow patties cows are producing all this, when you said it to me, I thought it was a Saturday Night Live skit.
No.
I thought it was a Saturday Night Live skit. He dead seriously in the face said, because of solar flares and the moon's rotation around the Earth, it's getting orbited out a little bit. That's causing our climate change. How can we fix that?
It's one of these things where sometimes people will use words that they don't understand that are bigger to make themselves sound smarter, and then that sort of gives them a little bit of credibility to talk about stuff that they don't really know. And this guy's going, there's solar flares and the orbit of the Earth, so can we change the orbit of the moon or the way that the sun orbits around the sun to fight climate change? And it's what?
I think I've seen this one before. So what you do is you get Bruce Almighty to lasso the moon and then pull it in. We can change it that way. We can get Gru to do it from Despicable Me, steals the moon, and then he can just put it back in. What the fuck is wrong with this thing? Is he watching Bugs Bunny on acid? I don't understand what's going on here.
Well, the best is his name is Louis Gummert. He asks, is there anything the National Forest Service can do to change the orbit of the moon?
The National Forest.
Yeah. So he's asking this woman who's on the National Forest Service, is there anything that you guys can do to change the orbit of the moon or the Earth, the way that it orbits around the sun? And she, with like a smile on her face, is like, I'd have to follow up with you on that. And he, straight face, goes, well, if you could figure that out for me, let me know. I'd be really interested in hearing you guys figuring that out for me. Thank you.
Okay. All seriousness, how would we change that?
You don't. The ramification. Let's pretend that it's practical, that somehow we've got a machine that can change the orbit of the moon or the orbit of the sun. Firstly, that would change how many days there are in a year or how many hours there are in a day. That
actually would probably kill us, but
well, yeah, okay, sure, but and then the moon, the way the oceans, like the tides would change, everything would change. Women's periods would be out of sync. It'd all be it'd be chaos.
Whoa. We will not be talking about females on this show today. Jesus, Murphy, man. You're going
Long story short, it'd be an apocalypse happening.
It would be. No, you're absolutely correct. And I'm just thinking, like, if this is the moon, do we shoot 50 nukes on one side to kind of try and move it? I don't know if the nukes are big enough. Like, you know what I mean, dude? I just don't know. Like, what the hell is wrong with this guy?
The bottom line is, and I'm gonna dial back a bit because people are going hard on Republicans for this. This is not a liberal versus conservative thing. This is a boomer versus millennial fight.
Whoa, relax. We're close to boomer age.
No, we're not. Boomer's a generation. We're millennials. This is a boomer versus millennial thing. Millennials understand how technology works. Millennials understand all this. Boomers are like, maybe you could change the orbit of I don't really, these are the people that are in charge of the world right now. How did we fucking survive our childhood? These people fucking raised us, Jean-Marc.
That's how we survived our childhood. Dude, we were sitting in the box of pickup trucks blowing down the road as our parents drank beer in the front seat.
Yeah, now it all makes sense. These guys are the ones that raised us. Now they're talking about changing the orbit of the sun and the moon and the whatever to fight climate change. And we're all going, no, these guys don't get it.
I'm fucking excited. I want to see this.
What? You're excited to see them try and pull this off?
Oh, I'm hoping they try something stupid.
This is why more millennials have to vote, so that people like this aren't in power, so that we can go, no, hold on.
Oh yeah, because we're gonna get AOC instead. Yeah, no, we don't need any of those.
That's good. AOC is great. Why do you hate AOC?
She's an idiot.
Oh, why? Based on what?
Everything.
That's not a thing. That's not a tangible argument, Joe.
You want to talk about? Okay, let's finish. Let's wrap up on this, and we can talk about the money that
you're the one that brought it up, man.
Dude, if you want to talk about AOC, I'll go all day, baby. Yo, you want to talk about AOC? Or do you want to wrap this up? I'll kill you.
Today's not the day to talk about AOC. I don't know why you hate her, though.
I do. I'll explain it to you. And I should have sent you the link, but I don't think you paid attention to it. I didn't send you a link, but no. I said I'm going to send you something that we'll talk about.
Just tell me what it is.
Well, so basically, she went down to Puerto Rico to see her aunt. Her aunt's house was in disrepair. Conservative reporter Matt Welsh started a GoFundMe page for AOC's grandmother and said,
wow,
this is what we want to do. We want to raise it for you 48 hours.
Conservative too, right?
Yes, Matt Welsh.
The aisle, so that's great.
Exactly. What did he raise? $250,000 in 24 hours.
That's incredible.
Made contact with AOC and said, I'd like to give you that money as it is yours. AOC said, no, we do not want that money because it's the Trump's fault that it is in this disrepair. So to double back, I believe the Daily Wire went down to Puerto Rico.
Daily Wire, so Ben Shapiro.
Yeah, went down. Well, the Daily Wire is like their website. Ben Shapiro is the head of it, but they went down to talk to AOC's aunt, who was in the disrepair, and it was her grandmother, I believe, and her aunt was there and said that I can't talk about it. I can't say the Trump funds weren't here. They were mismanaged in Puerto Rico. That's all I can say. It's not Trump's fault that my aunt's living in this type of squalor, and that's all I can say about it. So we're waiting for AOC to come back and say, well, why aren't you accepting the money that the conservatives raised for you? She said, because it's conservative money. She doesn't want it. She said it's Trump's fault that her aunt was living in squalor, or her grandmother. Then her aunt doubled down the other day and said, it's not Trump, it was mismanaged. And the head of Puerto Rico, whatever they have down there, like their prime minister or their president or their state Senate person, is looking at prison time for mismanagement of Trump funds. So AOC's like, oh, and then AOC got called out and was like, well, you're in Puerto Rico. Like, how can we fix it? Well, it's all Trump's fault. Well, how do we fix it if it's Trump's fault?
There's a lot to dig into that. There's a lot of
there's a ton. So what they're basically doing is they're waiting for AOC to come back and say, why did you refuse the money?
Well, it sounds like she refused the money because she thought, there was probably some unethical way of raising the money, is what it sounds like, because she's saying it's conservative money. So I'm guessing there was some way that it was raised that she doesn't agree with.
Oh, yeah, GoFundMe. It was a GoFundMe.
Okay. And two is it sounds like because she feels that Trump is responsible for this situation and this isn't going to fix it. So she probably feels like this is a symptom of a larger problem that was caused by Trump, and this sort of halfway doing right thing isn't enough to make it right.
Dude, but still, you could take it and say, thank you, here's what I'm going to do, right? But she makes so much money that she could have fixed the squalor that her grandmother was living in. But Matt Walsh took it upon himself to help her out, and then said, well, you can donate it. I think Matt Walsh is still donating all the money to a charity in Puerto Rico, like directly to the charity, to make sure that it does go out the right way. But AOC does not want to answer to it. And every time she's questioned about it, she seems to be backpedaling now. And I believe on Monday she'll have a press conference on why she didn't take the money. So it'll be a story that'll be ongoing that we can cover.
All right. Well, I guess we'll have to look into it next week.
We will. So let's just circle back to the moon here. We're both in agreement. This guy's an idiot, and how he asked that question with a complete straight face is mind-boggling.
But again, I don't think this is a Republican situation. This isn't a conservative who, the way that it's been spun in the media is conservatives don't understand climate change and yada, yada, yada. This is a boomer. This is an old guy that doesn't know what he's talking about, that's trying to understand. And there's a millennial or maybe even a Gen Xer on the other side that's going like, that's not really how that works, man. But
no,
thanks for...
I agree with you 100%. You're a fucking moron. Shut up. Take his mic away. Unplug his internet. Yeah. Like let me impulse buy on Amazon. Unplug his internet.
Yeah, and to me, the real scary thing about this story is these are the people that are in charge. These are the people who have been in charge. People that are going, how do we change the orbit of the fucking moon? These are the guys that are in charge, and we're letting them take the reins a little too much. Is what scares me.
I am afraid as well, my friend. We're on the same boat on that one.
Mm-hmm. So, let's get into another technology story. Have you heard about this story? There was an app. It was created by the FBI, but nobody really knew that. It was a encrypted message service. Basically, you'd have your cell phone and you would open up what looked like a calculator app, and you do a certain math formula, type certain numbers in, and it would open up a secret messaging service that you could message the criminal underworld, things like killing people, drugs. It confiscated lots of drugs. lots of contract killing, homicides, lots of this. Turns out the FBI actually designed this app and it was being used by criminals to communicate with each other. Every single message that was sent in this encrypted app was sent directly to the FBI.
Sweet. What was the app called? Is it still available?
The app is called Anom, A-N-O-M. I mean, I don't know if it's still available. It probably is. I'm sure the FBI isn't going to shut it down because if criminals want to use it to communicate, they're more than willing to let it. But any criminal that's paying attention is probably going to stop using it, right?
Well, for the most part. But at what point are we like? Because every time I think of mob, like let's just talk about the mob for a second. When I think of mob, I think of like the Gaudis and Capone and all these guys, like the old like wise guys, like. You don't directly talk to the boss. You talk to, if they want to talk to you and me, they go through our stooges, who then go through another stooge, who then go through another stooge.
Now, that's why this is so smart, because the way that they implemented this is they compromised a high-level encryption criminal. So this is a guy who does these encryption apps for criminals to be able to talk to each other. I don't know how they compromised him. I'm sure they busted the guy, and rather than have him turn over, they cut a deal with him and said, you make this app for us and you start distributing it, we don't throw you into jail. And I mean, that's speculation. I don't know that, but they compromised this high-level encryption criminal, and he distributes this app. And then other criminals start vouching for it. Other people who use it, they say, this guy, he's been working for us for X amount of years, for how many ever decades. This guy's good shit. He made an app. We're going to start using it. You should use it too. And sure enough, it spreads by word of mouth. All these criminals are using it. They're vouching for it for each other. And everybody's using it one way or the other. And it's exactly like you said, back in the day, it was, you don't get to these people unless it's somebody trusted. Well, they compromised somebody that was trusted.
Wow, my whole trust on the criminal underworld is now gone.
There you go.
God damn it,
this story
boys.
has compromised my trust in criminals. There is no honor among thieves.
I just put this in the toilet now to make sure I don't get arrested. Dude, if you're dumb enough to use your phone, to have conversations and or text messages about anything illegal without using your own jargon.
Yeah, and that's it. Is they do. There are other apps where they've apparently developed this jargon and coded language, but once they downloaded this, they just plain English. We're gonna go kill this motherfucker. All right.
They're like, all right. JM is at work between 2 and 10. Take them out at 10:30. Okay, get rid of them, dude. Are they? You know what, man? See, we got boomers on one hand trying to change the moon. We got millennials on the other hand just saying what the fuck they're doing to fuck themselves. Is there somewhere in the middle that we can all be?
I don't know, man. I don't know. All I know is this was a worldwide sting operation, but the real sting took place in Australia. Apparently, they've confiscated like tons and tons, like hundreds of tons of like cocaine, hundreds of tons of marijuana. Like
that's unacceptable. That is
unacceptable. That's great. And this is all run by the FBI. So it was Operation Trojan Shield. So sounds kind of like a condom operation, but
it sure does. It's maybe Tobin was in on it. No, oh God, dude, like don't be stupid. Okay, criminals out there, listen to JM. Out of everything I've watched, the Law and Orders, the CSIs, all that stuff, do not say directly to anybody what you are going to do if it's illegal. Don't do it. It's that easy.
It does sound pretty cool though. You download this app and you figure out the cosine and multiply this by that, and you add a little bit.
Dude, I bet you
follow the Bedmess formula exactly, and then boom, you're in a secret world where you can talk about crime freely.
Straight up.
And then
boobs. And it just goes in.
That's it. That would be my code. My code would be boobies.
That's it. And it just jumps right back in.
They're like, it's a skill testing question to be in the criminal underworld. No. We're just going to get them to type boobies. That's it.
That's it. Boobies. That's it, boys. That'll get us in. That's crazy. So if I'm ever in the underworld, I will delete the, what is it? Anom app? Is that
Anom, A-N-O-M.
My friends, if you're using it, delete it immediately as the FBI are onto you.
There you go.
Well, the FBI, I figured that would be like a CIA or something. That's FBI.
It's interesting. They're saying it's FBI, but it's a worldwide thing. Like the bust happened in Australia, so I don't really know.
I guess they got more power. I guess I might probably miss that.
Yeah, I don't know. Whatever, good for them. Glad they caught these guys. You know, I'd imagine. Honestly, I can only imagine what kind of stuff was going on in there. But so I got a couple other stories. I only got 2 more, and then we can get into a couple reviews here.
Let's do it.
So how's your arm doing?
I don't know if it's was doing. You know what? It's been a little sore, like I was saying. Literally, it took my Wi-Fi out.
There you go.
That's exactly what happened.
The magnetic field from your shoulder getting a vaccine shot is taken out.
Yeah,
internet in John Mark's house. So for those of you who aren't aware, there's a story that's going viral of a nurse and a woman by the name of Sherry Tenpenny. These people are testifying to lawmakers about how vaccines are causing people to be magnetized. If you've seen this video, it's ridiculous. This woman's she's got a key and a bobby pin, and she puts it like sort of in this concave part of her chest. And she's like, somebody explain this to me. Come on, somebody. And then she puts it on her neck. She's like, it'll stick to my neck too. And it keeps falling down. She's like, explain this. Why is this happening?
Because you're a fucking idiot. That's why.
So they use some technical jargon. They say that we're finding that there's somebody explain this to me, because they're finding metal proteins in the vaccines that are becoming magnetized, and people are having these magnetic powers. It turns out if you get the vaccine, not only are you immune to COVID-19, you also turn into Magneto, apparently.
Ooh, Magneto. I love him. I love Magneto.
Yeah,
he's probably out of the X-Men crew, he's probably my favorite.
Yeah.
You know what, dude? Just turn the internet off on those idiots too. At this point, like, I'm really the government now. Like, but nobody questions that it was. Who'd you get? I got Pfizer. You got Pfizer as well?
I got Pfizer too. I just got Pfizer the other day.
I got Pfizer this morning.
Got it. I got it right there.
Got it right there.
You know what?
Do you have anything metal on your table in front of you? Can you see if it sticks?
I was thinking.
Oh, you got a spoon. Try. Uh-oh. I can't explain that. See, dude, it took your magnetic away. It took your magnetic ability.
Wait. Let's give it a real try. Oh! Explain that! Oh, it fell, but it stuck for a second. Explain that! Explain that! COVID's a conspiracy. I'm fucking Magneto, and I'm coming for all of you now.
Sweet, that is awesome, man. Good job out there, Magneto. I appreciate that. Listen, nobody questioned Pfizer. Isn't Pfizer a German company?
I'm not sure if I mean, based on the syntax of how you spell Pfizer, I'm going to agree, but I don't really know.
Instead of we're allowing Germans to fix us and take that route, they're like, they turned us magnetic.
Turned us into mutants. This is obviously, I mean, I don't know if you caught the name Sherry Tenpenny. She is what has been called the Disinformation Dozen. She's one of the Disinformation Dozen. This is 12 of the people responsible for 65% of the misinformation about COVID that's been out there. She's one of 12 people who have spread this misinformation. This is just another thing. It's almost like you hear these crazy people, and it's almost like something's happening in their world, and they've probably had 1 million vaccines, but because this is in the headlines, they got to make up some crazy thing, and they got to have some crazy spin on it. Maybe it's this, maybe it's that, and they go to fantasy world, and they try to bring us all along with them. And some people unfortunately go with them, but I think it's fair to say that no, I don't have any magnetic powers because of the vaccine. How about you? Do you have any magnetic powers because of the vaccine?
No, but apparently it's a GPS chip in my arm. So I mean, the government I got the GPS one. Yeah, that happens. No, but man, like it's just the problem I've always had, and I've said it before on the show, is that it's funny that anti-vaxxers are vaccinated. Like, I didn't get polio because you're vaccinated, you dumb fuck.
Yeah.
Like, these guys are idiots, man. Like, and I don't understand, like, I'm not gonna rip a certain group of individuals, but I don't understand how you don't see it. Oh, well, nobody I know died of COVID. Well, yeah, because you're in the fucking wrong age frame. If your mother got, like, there are the people that are saying, like, oh, I didn't get COVID. If your mother got COVID, she's dead. Like, not your mom, but like some of the older ones, generations, like, she's gonna die. Like, they're not gonna live. They go, well, I don't know anybody that died from COVID. I'm like, oh, you guys are morons. It's the old people that are dying. Like, you or I get, like, we've talked about it before. We're gonna be sick. We'll bounce back.
Yeah.
Dude, if a vaccine, and like I was telling the girl, I had to travel today. I had to travel, return, I think $160K to get my COVID vaccine. But like I was telling the doctor when he was giving it to me today, I'm like, he's like, you have any questions? I'm like, dude, just put it in my arm. Let's get going. And he's like, really? I'm like, listen, I want to get that number up to 70%. And then I want to get the second dose to 70. I said, so then we can remove the mask so I can get back to making fun of people's teeth. Like, let's go.
Hey, let me ask you this. When are you scheduled for your next shot? Because you're Pfizer too, right?
Yeah, good question. September. See, let me just pull up my email here and I'll be able to tell you. Because I had both of them in there. Start.
Mine's the day after my birthday, October 2nd, which is like 4 months away.
Yeah, I'm October 3rd.
I'm going to be rescheduling mine because I'm told that it's supposed to be within 21 days. So I'm going to
try and do mine as well. And that's what I was afraid of when we talked about it before. I talked to the wife about it. People say you're anti-vaxxer. I'm not anti-vaxxer, but when I'll believe what they tell me and they say you got to get it within X number of days or else the first shot is. So I just don't want to continue to get poked. Like I don't want to have to go every time. I don't want to do 160 return to get a shot every fucking 3 months because we're a bunch of idiots.
Yeah. Let's get this one and done, but or two and done or whatever. But
it's probably going to be 3 and done, to be honest.
Yeah. Well, I've heard there's a possibility we might have to do a booster shot every year or something. I'd like to think that at some point we'll wipe this whole thing out, but if I gotta get a shot in the arm every year, that's all right too.
I don't give a shit, man.
Yeah, I don't care. All right, so Kim Jong-un is in the news for 2 separate things. Have you heard anything about this?
What happened? Did they knock the internet out again in the States?
Well, basically there's 2 reasons. One is that he has lost a lot of weight, which has raised speculation that he may be ill. And there's even a few people who are saying maybe it's not him, maybe it's a double. I don't think anybody's seriously saying that. But they're saying that he could have health issues. We know that this guy has kayfabed the fact that he has a butthole and he's indestructible and he's a god and he chain smokes like a motherfucker. It's very possible that he is sick and not revealing it, but I don't really know about that. He has had health issues in the last year, I believe, but seems to be okay other than the loss of weight. But I mean, hell, a lot of people, seems to be 2 things people are doing during COVID, either losing weight or gaining weight. And he seems to be one of the ones getting fit. Use that fucking that time to get fit.
But they don't have COVID in North Korea. He's told us they don't have COVID in North Korea.
Because he shoots them whenever they got it.
I actually probably would have made our lives easier. We wouldn't be in lockdown. But anyways, I'm not supporting communism, I guess. No, dude. So what is his issue again? He hates K-pop or whatever.
Well, that's the other reason he's trending. He's trending for 2 reasons. The other one is that he hates K-pop. He is going to war. North Korea is going to war with K-pop. Obviously, they're a socialist country. His exact quotes are, "K-pop is a vicious cancer that is corrupting the youth of North Korea." He's looking for harsher penalties for citizens consuming South Korean media. There's plenty of these stories, documentaries about little flash drives that'll make their way across the border, and that's filled with Korean movie, South Korean movies and South Korean culture. Kim Jong-un, I keep wanting to say Kim Jong-il. He's also saying that it's anti-socialist influence. They've corrupted our youth's hairstyles, our youth's speeches, and the behaviors of the young of North Korea.
So the thing with him is he was ill about 6 months ago. They thought he died, if I'm not mistaken. And then they said that his sister was going to be his predecessor, which is really fucking scary because she's crazy, apparently worse than he is. Okay. So him being sick probably happened. I would imagine he's sick. Maybe he's got cancer. Hopefully, I don't want to wish that on anybody, but if anybody's going to get it, let's try it out on him. Sure. But so that's him losing a lot of weight. Kind of goes with the story from 6 months ago that they denied that he was almost dead.
Yeah.
The whole K-pop thing, I kind of followed it a little bit, like BTS. Is that the name of the band, I believe?
Yeah, I don't know. It's not my stuff, but
yeah, it's not mine either. I haven't listened to their songs. They seem like nice kids. I believe with that, they keep the same people and they keep the same songs and they switch the people out, I believe.
Oh, okay. That's cool.
I think that's the one, or there might be one in Japan that does that as well. But they're crazy. It's crazy. And I didn't know this until I had my buddy's kids had said something that McDonald's had the BTS meals than
This,
Korean barbecue, and it's selling out all over the world.
Yeah,
and,
that's another story I was actually going to bring today.
The kids are saying like, oh, it's so good, and you got to get this and you got to get that. I'm like, wow. And thinking about it, I'm like, I could see where he's saying it's propaganda. He doesn't want them because everybody seems to love these guys. Mm-hmm. They seem to have a fun following. They got a big group, young girls, young boys. Everybody likes them. I never heard a bad thing about them. They're very polite when they're in Canada. They're very nice. So to me, it's a feel good story, right? You're like, oh, these are good guys.
So what I'm hearing is that North Korea is going to war with McDonald's, catchy poppy hooks, capitalism, K-pop, and they're gonna fight the cool K-pop hairstyle with Kim Jong-un's fucking weird fucking shitty hair. I'm saying that's an uphill battle, right?
Well, yeah, you know what, man? But I the North Koreans are fucking crazy, right? Like we've seen videos of them like killing his uncle in an airport and stuff like that. Like, so I'd have the most security around these guys.
Yeah, but you're fighting a youth movement. Would be interesting to be in North Korea in this time. Like right now is
I never want to be in North Korea.
You're getting your hair cut and all fucking anime hair. I don't know if that's what K-pop people wear, or you're listening to music on a USB drive and you gotta smuggle it across the border, and you're checking out movies on your laptop, but you gotta make sure your internet connection's not there so that the government doesn't find you, and you're all fighting for freedom, and this is a fight for capitalism against the socialist dictator. It's kind of a cool idea if you really think about it.
But they'll get shot if they get caught.
They'll get more than shot. They'll be put into hard labor, and they'll be there's stories of people who've been put into hard labor and sentenced to 30 years hard labor and come back with brain damage and asphyxiation damage and stuff like that. Obviously, the risk is terrible. I'm just saying that this is an uphill battle for Kim Jong-un. Of course, he's a oppressive dictator, and he has the means to fight it. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out.
Just take him out.
Just bomb North Korea.
That's it.
All right. Well, we're gone from one vicious person into another. Did you check out the Dynamite Kid documentary on the dark side of the ring?
I did. I did. It was.
What'd you think?
Why don't you tell us who Dynamite Kid is first? So if anybody is watching and they don't know,
I'd imagine anyone that's going to watch it is going to know who Dynamite Kid is.
Well, but if they're following, one of our fans are following, they go through Dynamite Kid. Let's explain who Dynamite Kid was.
Sure. Dynamite Kid is a guy named Tom Billington. He was Davey Boy Smith's cousin, the British Bulldog, also the brother-in-law of Bret the Hitman Hart. He's a pro wrestler, probably one of the best pro wrestlers in history, influenced Chris Benoit, created the entire Super Junior style, was the first to do that hard-hitting style that also combined lots of technical grappling, submission, and high-flying, a very well-rounded style. Influenced a lot of the wrestlers today. His matches with Tiger Mask are, whoa, I don't know if you heard that. We're getting thunder here. His matches today with Tiger Mask are probably the predecessors for the cruiserweights and the junior heavyweight. This was his matches obviously took place in the 80s, so he's like 20 years ahead of his time.
It's funny how you mentioned Chris Benoit and Thunderstruck.
That is interesting.
So he was a wrestler back then. He was a great wrestler. Yes. Piece of shit human being.
Yeah, I think that there's no denying that. I think a lot of people have talked about for a long time. I have his book here, Pure Dynamite, if you can see that.
Yes.
And I also have underneath the spoon that I just had, this book here, which actually, to be honest, I would say has more telling of a story of the Dynamite Kid, but both between the two of them, they paint him to be a very bad person. There's a lot of stuff that they didn't really get into that was in these books, but
so I watched it and I was hoping they were going to go full like disclosure on how much of a piece of shit Dynamite really was.
Yeah.
Dynamite yet again. Well, I'm going to call him a boomer of wrestling.
Okay.
He's a piece of shit. He beat up wrestlers who he thought had it too easy getting to the WWE, as there has been there before. The steroid era back then was obviously in full fledged. I mean, we're not faking, we're not lying about it. He was an angry human being, and when you fill him full of testosterone and the great 80s steroids, he turned into a monster.
Well, it's interesting in that documentary talking about steroids is they talked about how one guy walks into a room, the Dynamite Kid's got a bunch of needles stuck in the wall.
Dynamite has the needle in his ass before he goes out to the ring and says, we're going to have a hell of a match.
But the ones that he was sticking in the wall, what they don't tell, and I think it was in one of these books, is Dynamite would fucking stick it in the wall, like take the needle and like rub it all over the fucking floor, get it all dirty, and then he would inject people with it. There's a story in his own fucking book that when Davey Boy Smith took steroids for the very first time, he injected them with milk.
Yeah, because he's a fucking dick.
Just crazy stories like this, and you watch this documentary and it doesn't do him any favors. But I will say that I mean, you watched it and you said he's a piece of shit, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
I'll be honest. When I watched it, it's the first time that I ever kind of saw him as a little bit of human, because it talks about there's a side of him that it's interesting because he's a piece of shit. He's a terrible person. And there's that duality of he's a piece of shit, but he's an incredible wrestler. And he had this small man syndrome that probably fueled both of those things. But in this documentary, it was the first time that you saw that he was a really good father. I mean, maybe he wasn't a good husband, but he was a caring and loving father. And he left to go to England and never came back. And maybe that's because his steroid fueled hatred was something that he felt that he needed to protect his own children from. He was self-aware enough to sort of make that decision. I feel watching that. I don't know. Maybe I'm a little bit out.
And you and I are on complete different sides of it.
Okay.
How do I say this? I don't bury him. I don't give a fuck. He was
Sure.
going to come back and get me. Listen, the guy's a piece of shit. The guy was a wrestler. The guy got his way up. Now, to me, he wouldn't even been in the WWE for that long if it would have been for Davey Boy.
No, that's not true. That's absolutely not true. I will disagree with you 100,000%.
Maybe because I'm a Bulldog. Like I was a fan of both of them. Like I really was when I was a kid.
Sure.
I preferred Davey maybe because Davey stuck around a little more, and I always thought Davey to me was better. I just like Davey's style. Maybe
I'm not gonna trash Davey Boy Smith, but
no. I
find a
love
flaw in the Dynamite Kid style. The only flaw in him is that he was not the tallest wrestler, which.
And you said it off the hop. Benoit followed his style. Mm-hmm. That style was crazy. And even Mick Foley said like he had to be a little bit more hardcore for back then, like going into those metal ring posts and things like that. And I understand that, but he was a piece of Then once he started taking the steroids and getting bigger, you could see it. The minute he started taking steroids, his digression with his family just went down. Like he just died. Like his whole family. He's like trying to shoot his wife in the head with a shotgun, all beating his wife, doing all kinds of stuff. Then like dislocating Mick Foley's jaw because Mick Foley didn't pay his dues, which as we see from documentaries, Mick Foley's paid his dues.
That they kind of glazed over that story because there was a bit of in Mick Foley's book, he talks about how he was a jobber. He was put in to job. He was put in.
He was an enhancement talent. Yes, sir.
Sure. But he was a jobber. Yep. Put in to be a jobber. And when they say that he was literally shaking, that's like a shorter clip of a quote that Mick Foley has said in other interviews where he says that Davey Boy Smith shot him off the ropes or did something I don't really quite remember. And if you watch the match, I've seen it several times. Mick Foley kind of does what he thinks he's supposed to do, and he gives a bit of an elbow and starts getting a little bit of an offense. And he was there to make the other guy look good. So this enrages the Dynamite Kid. He starts shaking the ropes because he knows that this guy's making them look bad. He tags in, and I mean, he takes liberties with the guy. He shouldn't be roughing the guy up. The guy, he did do a big misstep, but maybe that's not the time and place to handle it, but at that time, that's how things were handled.
Exactly. Now, I was looking at it and watching his style, like you said with Benoit. Right away, you can see Chris Benoit. If you're a Benoit fan like I am, you can see Benoit and Dynamite Kid are almost exactly the same. Like their mannerisms, their size, their build, their mentality, the head drop, all this stuff. Like with all that damage he was doing, the drugs, the alcohol, like the steroids, there's no way you could have been a nice guy, right? So he was a piece of shit, and I didn't like him. I'm watching it now. I'm like, I don't want to watch another one of this guy's matches because he's that much of a dick. Another thing too about that really fucking pissed me off, and I was kind of when he sucker punched the Rougeau.
Yeah, let's get into that.
Mr. Perfect was painted like an asshole in that. And
I'm curious because I didn't catch the Mr. Perfect part, but I know the story.
So basically, Rougeau went into the locker room. Hennig was sitting by himself in the far corner, went to the Rougeau and said, "Hey, you want to play some cards?" He said, "Yep." He already had the table set up, was sitting down at the cards. Rougeau sat down at the cards, and Dynamite came from behind him and smacked him within like 30 seconds of looking down at his cards.
Okay.
And then beat the piss out of him. So Perfect was in on it. Now, that is a mentality that I always thought of Hennig as the guy's guy, partier, Mr. Perfect, you know what I mean? And I was kind of a little bit bitter about that you've actually literally, if that were to happen today, Mr. Perfect is an accessory to an assault.
Well, I think Mr. Perfect's fine with being accessory to an assault. Mr. Perfect's been in plenty of brawls, and probably Curt Hennig has no problem letting two guys handle their differences. The PS to that story that they didn't get into is Curt Hennig is a bit of a ribber from what I've heard. I don't know him, but from what I've read online, bit of a ribber. The urban legend is that these two guys were at each other's throat. There was something coming to a head, and I'm trying to recall if it was the Rougeaus or the Bulldogs. I'm going to say, for the sake of this story, that the Bulldogs said, no, maybe it was the Rougeaus. Somebody said, watch my gear, watch my clothes. And then I got to wrestle, make sure the other guys don't do anything to my bag. And while they were out wrestling, Curt Hennig cut it into shreds. And when they came back, they go, yeah, the other guy that you told me to watch out for, he did it. I did everything I could and just stirred the pot a little bit. That
was the Rougeaus, because I think the Rougeau talks about it. I've seen it in shoot interviews. Yes,
possibly, yeah. That sounds about right. But that sounds about right. That it was Jacques Rougeau that had that happen. But
but when it comes to ribs, right? Like when Piper did his black and white, or his black half black face, and they threw away his cleaner and they just gave him water and he couldn't wash it off. Like those are ribs, right? Like locking two people who don't like each other, locking their bags together.
Yeah.
Things like that. That's a rib. But like just to sit down in a game of cards and get smacked from behind like that, like that's on Perfect for being an asshole. Like you literally set somebody up. You could have run their career back then. You had to do 300 days you have to do 300 days a year. You're taking some money out of somebody's pocket, like good money out of somebody's pocket. That's a bit of a dick.
I think Dynamite Kid's the dick in that situation. I don't put any blame on Mr. Perfect, but that's agree to disagree on that.
And then then Rougeau got back at him.
Yeah. Well, that's an interesting story. Did you saw the story of he got back at him. He punched him in the mouth with a roll of quarters, probably more likely a pair of brass knuckles. I don't really know. Nobody was there to say. I found it interesting that Dynamite Kid's wife, she goes, I didn't think he deserved that, despite the fact that he put the other guy in the hospital and made it so he had to eat out of a straw for 3 weeks or whatever. He didn't deserve to get his teeth knocked out. He did all these terrible things to people, but didn't deserve that. I think he kind of maybe did.
He kind of did, and I'm with you. As I think that he got exactly what he deserved. And then the Mountie going to Dino Bravo, who had mob ties.
Yeah.
And said, like, here you go, we'll give him a fake name. And said, if every night I call this guy, and if I don't call him, he'll take care of the issue. And then Dino went and told him, don't fuck with him. Because
that's an interesting story though, because I have heard that I've heard different versions. I actually heard Vince McMahon was one of the ones that said I think it was Vince McMahon said watch out, because he's got mafia ties in Montreal. I don't know if it's mafia or.
Well, it is, because if you watch the fall of Dino Bravo, the assassination of Dino Bravo, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, and you go, yeah, he wrestled. He's a Rougeau brother. He's from Montreal. You know, all this stuff, but like it's hilarious.
Let me propose something to you though. If you had mafia ties or gangster ties, let's just call it gangster because mafia implies a certain group, but let's say ties to a certain gang, and they did something like that, and you're on a documentary on TV, and they say, hey, is it true that you had these mobsters that were going to do a hit on this guy if you got messed up and you yada, yada, yada?
Nope.
Would you say, oh, yeah, that's absolutely true? Or would you say, yeah, I made up a fictitious name and I showed him all these pictures of his house and that guy fell for it. And Dino Bravo, we know, is not alive to, to
dude,
defend
but like
himself.
The funny thing is, and here's the thing. So we know Dino Bravo had ties to the mafia. We
know that. And the rumors the Rougeaus do too.
So by the Mountie, as the Mountie always gets this man, gives him the piece of paper and says, I know he's a stooge for those guys. He loves those guys. Sure. Gives him a piece of paper with whatever his name is. Like, oh, dude, yeah, no, don't fuck around.
Fictitious name.
Oh, now it's fictitious.
Yeah.
Because he knows now that if that guy's kid is out, goes, you just ratted on my father for another fucking murder?
Maybe he's still around. Murder? Maybe he's still alive, right? He might be Joe's age, yeah.
Yeah, it could be. Just says you're fucking done. I give him a fictitious name. That's the best thing to do. Okay, you know what? It was real, but you know what? 20 years later, I ain't saying shit.
Yeah. You know, it raises a little bit of it perpetuates the urban legend, because if he just said, yeah, I did that, well, okay, maybe, but the fact that he's saying no, that didn't happen,
I gave a fake name.
And this is like, to dive a little bit further into this, is we know Dino Bravo's got mob ties. You give a fake name to him, he doesn't go, like, he should go, I don't know that name. That guy's not a real guy. That guy's not in that circle, because I know all the guys in that circle. I gave a fictitious name. That's, it doesn't add up to me. It raises a lot of questions if you ask me.
You could tell right away when he said it. Oh yeah. Now why you guys bring this back, I'm remembering.
Yeah, he's got a big grin.
I wrote a fake name there. I go, dude, you did not write a fake name, because if you would have gave it to Davey and said like this guy or Hogan or somebody, perfect. Hey, give this to him there. Like tell him, oh yeah. No, you gave it to Dino. So right away, you and Dino have been known to come up in Montreal together. Literally, you guys headlined Montreal for years together. You know all the same people. Oh, okay, yeah, because I know that's your buddy. So yeah, okay, I'll make sure that it doesn't happen.
It's true. The fictitious name thing, it doesn't add up. A lot of it doesn't. It raises a lot of questions, and it perhaps perpetuates the urban legend. I mean, we'll never know. We'll never know whether he made it up or whether he did have those ties and he did put that insurance.
But if it worked, it's fantastic.
It's fantastic one way or the other. Jacques Rougeau is a brilliant person for doing this one way or the other.
That's it. Yeah, no, absolutely. I thought it was great. The only thing, and I will say this about and then while watching the rest of the documentary coming towards the end, when he's off the steroids and he goes back he retires, and then he's bare knuckle fighting in front of cars.
Yeah.
So the only thing, I don't know if the narrative for Dark Side of the Ring would have worked. He probably made a lot of money wrestling. He probably made a lot of money. He probably sent a lot of money home. Here you go. Here's my paycheck. I'm in wherever. I'm in Wyoming. Sent it to the wife back home in Calgary. Did he just give all of his money to his wife and kids?
I don't know.
Because if you're bare knuckle fighting and you literally made like $4 million, let's say, over your career, you would think in a short you would have money.
To be honest, I have always sort of subscribed to the narrative, and I don't know if I ever really checked into it, that I know that Dynamite Kid spent the last long while in a wheelchair, and I always thought that he was impoverished. And I think actually in this book that Brett might even have said that he was living a shell of himself in a wheelchair in Wigan or somewhere in the UK, and in basically a poor neighborhood where kids would. So I don't think he was living well. I don't know if he had a lot of money. It is possible that he gave
all his money to his wife.
It is possible.
Do you know what I mean? So you're looking at it, you're going, okay, you got taken care of, because you did wrestle. You wrestled what, WrestleMania 2? Was it WrestleMania 2 and 3? I think
2, 3, yeah, because he
and
was.
did he make it to 6?
No, I don't think he made it past 3. Like I can't. I've seen them all, but I can't tell you specifically. I don't think he made it past 3. And
Okay.
to be honest, it's interesting that you bring up that his last match is in 1996. Somewhere around the early 2000s, somebody showed me a picture of Dynamite Kid. This is what he looks like now, and he's in a wheelchair. And somewhere, again, I subscribe to the narrative that in the early 80s, maybe like 92-ish, that, late 80s, early 90s, he suffered an injury and was in a wheelchair for the rest of his life. But that's not true. He was wrestling we were in high school in 1996. He had his last match. And he did have that injury, that famous injury in the 80s, but somehow he got back up and continued to wrestle. And it is interesting that I often get confused on that timeline of when exactly he was wheelchair bound and when exactly he retired from wrestling. I've never seen his last match. I'll be honest. I've never bothered to go out and see that.
No, go to your way. No, but like, here's the thing too, right? When you say back, especially back then, like there's a perfect example of internet. You hear, okay, he's in a wheelchair from this injury. We haven't seen him wrestle because when he's out of sight, he's out of mind.
Sure.
And then when you see him, you go, oh fuck, how was he wrestling his last match in 2002?
It was 96, actually.
It was 96. Did he come back for that one match? Is that the one we're talking about?
That was 96 was when he came back.
96. And you go, oh, wow, he's wrestling. Well, I thought he was in a wheelchair. And then you go back, and then you fast forward a couple of years, you forget about it again, and he's in a wheelchair. You're like, oh, okay, I'm confused. Like, that's how it happens, right?
It's a confusing narrative. I know that he was in a wheelchair for a long time. It was one of those things, I think Jim Cornette pointed it out, is Harley Race was the one that invented the diving headbutt, and he said that it's too dangerous of move. His biggest regret is that no wrestler should ever do it. Dynamite Kid said, I'm going to do it off the top rope. I don't care. I'm going to do it anyway. I'm going to do it out to the floor. I'm going to do it. And then Dynamite Kid was wheelchair bound and said, don't do it. It's the worst thing that you could possibly do. It'll end your career. And Chris Benoit, set to be a carbon copy of Dynamite Kid, he did it anyway, ignored all these generations. The cycle repeats itself. And of course, Chris Benoit ends up with that CTE, and it damages his brain beyond repair from all the concussions that headbutt specifically caused. And now there's kids out there doing just as much, and who knows what's going to happen to them.
You don't give them the spotlight then.
Yeah.
Because you watch it, and then at the end of it, when his daughter said he went and seen him in the wheelchair and flew over to England, and it's like they didn't miss a beat.
Yeah.
His love for his children was always there. We know that. Like, that's what you were saying, is a good dad.
Yeah.
But he was he's a drug addict that lived a basic 80s wrestler mentality. Mm-hmm. Like, when you think of 80s wrestlers, you think of juiced up guys who don't live past their 40s.
Yeah.
They hit 50. That's old age for them.
Yeah.
Right. For what they put their body through. So, and then, she got a little closure, and it wasn't, I don't know. To me, it's like, yeah, because he's no longer on steroids, and he's seen the last, when you see your last days, when you see the light at the tunnel and you're going towards the light, you change your life real quick. Right. So, I mean, good on his daughter for going and seeing him and stuff like that. But like, that just shows you on a drug fueled rampage of the 80s. That's another snapshot of the 80s that is just ridiculous wrestling wise. One question for you.
Sure.
Dynamite Kid ever going to be in the Hall of Fame?
Ooh, he absolutely deserves it. It's sort of like a lesser extent of Chris Benoit. The Chris Benoit situation is that because of who he was outside of the ring, they may shy away from it. But I don't think that what he did was as bad as Chris Benoit. In fact, he has said Chris Benoit is a piece of shit and doesn't deserve, like, he should be abolished from wrestling. Chris Benoit he wants nothing to do with Chris Benoit. I think he was a bad person, but I don't think he was as bad as Chris Benoit. His influence is greater than Chris Benoit because he influenced Chris Benoit he influenced Shawn Michaels. He influenced, Bret Hart. He influenced all these smaller guys. He created that entire smaller guy style that is implemented now. Should he be in the Hall of Fame? I say absolutely. Will WWE ever let him in the Hall of Fame? I don't think so.
I don't think so either. And the reason I don't think is because that everybody's agreed that he was violent. He promoted everything that you don't want today in today's world. He was him. He was a bully in the workplace.
Yeah.
He was an asshole outside. He was a wife beater outside.
Yes.
He literally tried to kill his wife with a gun.
Yes.
You know what I mean? So every piece of shit story that you've ever heard of him, the trick was, I'm going to put a date rape drug in somebody's beer and then fuck with them. Like the guy, no, because of that simple reason, they're going to pull him. Like if they're pulling people out of the Hall of Fame for other reasons, like Snook and stuff. Well, Snook is another machine, but they do not, they don't deserve.
The thing is, I mean, you gave that specific example of GHB and your drink or whatever. There's a million stories of guys like X-Pac has told, like, I'd wake up in a hotel room and my eyebrows would be all shaved and half my head would be gone, and I got a photo shoot, or X-Pac says there's a picture of him on an action figure where his eyebrows all met, or he doesn't have any eyebrows and stuff, because that happened to everybody. That happened to everybody. With that said, Dynamite Kid did worse. He was the worst of them. The stuff that he did was terrible. I still say he belongs in the Hall of Fame, but I mean, his influence on wrestling is too great to ignore. It's like the fabric of what wrestling is today.
If they ever get out of the rated PG era, they will put him into it. Until then, until they get a little rougher around the edges again, they won't put him in.
All right. And that brings us to our last thing. It's another review story. Have you seen Loki on Disney Plus?
No, I have not, but you're going to explain it to me today, my friend, and I'm going to watch it. I have not had time. I've been stupid busy.
All right. So Loki is a time travel paradox TV show, is basically the best way to explain it. If you watched Infinity War and Endgame. During Endgame, they go back in time and they go to the first Avenger movie, and they cause some time travel paradoxes, and Loki grabs a Tesseract, disappears, and the opening scene of this is, we're going to have, you go into it thinking, we're going to have this whole alternate timeline Loki storyline. The very first thing that happens, is that the time cops, I don't even remember, I didn't bother to write down what they're called, but these time cops show in, they grab the Tesseract, they say, you're coming with us, and he's basically in like a time cop jail for violations against the timeline. These people, they have these abilities to mute his magical powers and control him and put him on trial for breaking the timeline, and it brings into a lot of different scenarios.
Whoa, hang on.
Sure.
Okay, so I'm gonna break this down as a fan, because I'm literally, once we're done, I'm gonna watch it now because I'm stoked. You've already sold me on it. You're doing such a good job. Awesome. They arrested him for breaking the timeline?
Yeah.
It wasn't even fucking Loki that did it.
I know. That's what he says. He says, you don't want me, you want the Avengers. Those are the guys that did it. I just reacted to what they were doing, and I escaped their capture because he was captured.
Yeah.
Did what I was supposed to do. And they go, oh, no, you're the one. Everything. He goes, they went back in time. Isn't that breaking the timeline? And they go, no, because in our timeline, they're supposed to go back in time. You're the one that broke the timeline by, I don't know. It's this convoluted, interesting story that you got to see where it's going. And another thing that I want to point out, though, is you've seen the MCU, right? You've seen.
Yes, of course.
So Thor 1, I'm trying to think, was Thor 2 out before Avengers 1? And then Avengers is Loki's the big baddie in Avengers. After that, there's a bit of a change of heart. Is Loki kind of becomes like a brother, where he's got this love-hate relationship, whereas before that, he's like the evil guy who becomes the big baddie that the Avengers have to unite against. Then he kind of turns into, like, he's a bit of a good guy, a bit of a bad guy. That's where this timeline is going to pick up, is after Loki, there's a possibility that Loki's going to be sent back in time and possibly has to fulfill the proper timeline. And he's like kind of a different person. He's grown up. And it's interesting to see, is perhaps there's like some deep philosophy is, does Loki do these things because of the experiences that are going to happen in the Loki storyline, or Loki do them because he was supposed to do them, and they happened before he went back in time. A lot of deep thoughts to go into that.
Holy fuck, yeah, that sounds like a good mind bender there. That sounds delicious. That sounds amazing. But I have been a fan of the MCU, what they've done after the Avengers.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like Captain America or Falcon and Winter Soldier. I love that series. That was amazing. And I'm excited to see where Loki goes. A bit of a troll job by Disney. I'm just going to change it for a second. Coming out 2 weeks ago and saying that Loki is gender fluid.
Yeah. That's not a troll job. How's that a troll job?
I'll tell you why it's a troll job. Because the right blew up and said, why are you making all these people gender fluid? I'm like, listen, guys, Loki can change into anybody. That makes him gender fluid. Just because Disney came out and said he's gender fluid, he can be male or female, we already knew that. Like, that's a shapeshifter. That's what we know. But the right, who are too dumb to pick up a comic book or pay attention to anything that's happened in the MCU last 10 years.
I was expecting you to jump on board with these guys because you've generally been the voice of the conservatives on this.
I usually am the voice of the conservatives. And when I first read the headline, Marvel, Disney is coming out as gender fluid for Loki, I was like, oh man, those motherfuckers. First to get rid of my girl Gina, and then as I'm about to get angry and click the link on my phone, it just pops in my head and goes, of course he is. He literally can come and he can just shapeshift into anything.
Yeah. So this is another story of, it's not a conservative thing. It's a stop and think for a second thing. And those that didn't bother to stop and think maybe didn't get it, but someone like you, who these right-wing values, stopped and thought about it for a second and realized, whoa, that's not.
We call them shapeshifters, or we call them, like,
he's a trickster. He's a god trickster. He's a trickster god.
But it's when you're looking at like Morph and all these other guys, like, yeah, that's what they do. Yeah, okay, cool. You're like, oh, Mystique is another one too, right? You're like, oh shit.
Of course, he's gender fluid.
I'm like, so are those guys, right? So is Morph and so is Mystique. They're all gender fluid. So I mean, yeah.
Absolutely. And if you watch this show, I know you haven't bothered to see it, but he takes the place of a very interesting historic scoundrel. I'm not going to spoil it for you. It is a male, though. I will say that. Some other things that are interesting about this, there's a bit of softening of Loki, retconning some of the not so nice things that he's done. I would like to get into it, but I don't want to spoil it for you. So I'm just going to say they kind of put him on trial for all the things that he's going to do, not things that he has done. And he goes, I didn't even do these things. They show him things that are going to happen to him, things that are maybe a little bit despicable. And he admits that maybe that was a bit of deception. And there's a lot of psychology into this. Some people even pointed out that maybe he's projecting. He's saying these people don't actually have power. They project power. Maybe he's talking a little bit about himself in these situations. A lot of really cool mindfucks in this show. I'm going to say, as far as pilots go, I'm going to say this is probably the best Marvel pilot I've seen. I didn't really think the WandaVision pilot was that great. I thought it picked up as time went on.
Yep.
I thought the Falcon Winter Soldier show was good, but I'm going to say this was the best pilot out of all the shows that Marvel has done so far. So
I'm very excited that if you're saying that, because I know how much of an MCU guy you were.
Yeah. Well, I'm a bit of an MCU guy. Yeah, I followed the comic books as a kid, and it is really great to see these stories come to life
and good with good production value.
Yeah,
I want to say that again. Like that's key for me.
And now we're getting into an interesting point that it's interesting. We're getting into this conversation that we're getting into like time travel paradoxes and multiverses and alternate universes, where as a comic book fan, I love seeing that on the big screen, but I'm a little bit worried that perhaps the normal audience member, it might be a little bit too out there for them, because before it was like, we're going to do a Spider-Man movie and it's Spider-Man fights a bad guy, they get into a fight and yada yada. Now it's like, we're going back in time, and in this movie, this guy changes this timeline, and now there's an alternate timeline, but we're going back into the real timeline, and we're going back in time to change this, and forward in time, now there's time cops. Things getting a little too abstract for casual viewer? What do you
Yes, absolutely. And I'll give you a quick story of that. My wife is a perfect example. My wife didn't really care. She doesn't really, it's not a market cover, but I am. So I'm like, hey, we're going to do this. Once time travel comes for her, she kind of just rolls her eyes and says, I'm done.
Okay.
Because when the Avengers, and I knew there was going to be time travel, I believe, which one was that? Was it Endgame?
Endgame, yes.
Endgame. I went and watched it by myself on the opening day because I said, I'll go watch it by myself. And sure, I said, just to see how the time travel is. She hates Back to the Future too for that specific reason. Because you watch the first one, he goes back into time. That's easy. The second one, he goes ahead. Then he goes back to the time in the 50s to get that comic back and is running through. And she's like, what the hell? Same with the Star Trek series, the first one.
Well, I know that you love watching these shows with your wife. She is not going to enjoy Loki. That's all I'm going to say.
That's perfect. That means I can just...
This is Back to the Future 2, 100%. This is him watching things happen to him. He watches, man, like, spoiler alert, and you got to expect it's coming. He watches his own death. He watches Thanos kill him. And the reason that's kind of significant is up until Avengers, which is where he bleeps out of the timeline, he was working for Thanos. And then he watches, this motherfucker kills me in the end. You got to realize, and that might even play a little bit into why suddenly he knows Thanos is coming. He's got to stop Thanos, and he maybe switches sides because this motherfucker is going to kill him anyway. Why would he help him? And it's a lot of mind fucks going on there.
Once we're done this, I may grab a beer and watch it. I'm going to have to watch it. I'm going to have to now, and I'm going to have to just sit down on my couch and watch it.
That's cool, man. So I think that's all we really got to say is I really enjoy Loki so far. Really think that as far as setting an expectation, this did a great job. I went into it expecting it to be an alternate timeline where Loki kind of got away with the Tesseract, and what's he do? Immediately it was like, no alternate timeline. We're fixing that little timeline bleep. Did an interesting job of setting the expectation in that first episode, and I can't wait to look forward to it. And also, I even forgot to mention, how could I forget? You haven't seen it. Owen Wilson is in this.
Wow.
I love it. Awesome. Best response. Owen Wilson. How could I even forget that? Owen Wilson is in this. Does a great job. That's it, man.
I'm going to double down here. What is your favorite Owen Wilson movie?
Favorite Owen Wilson movie? I think I like Wedding Crashers.
Wedding Crashers?
Yeah.
Armageddon for me.
Armageddon.
I love that fucking movie.
I feel like he's almost like...
He's that sideshow on that one, but I love it.
That's like, I feel like they made the entire movie and then they spliced in reactions of Owen Wilson saying like Hollywood, like, it's the worst thing that's ever happened. It's the worst thing that's ever happened.
He's like, what can we expect? Okay, so the worst thing possible.
Yeah.
Yes, okay. You could have just said the worst.
All the characters are sort of doing the character work and the plot is moving forward, and then it's like, it's the worst thing ever.
Yeah. Did you want to talk before we go? Did you want to talk about Conan?
Oh, no, we don't need not now. If you want to talk about it once his final episode airs, we can talk about it.
Okay. So when is his final episode?
I think it's in like 2 weeks. So
okay, yeah. So let's
Although, I like the way you think. It is a good idea to get ahead of the trends.
Well, I was kind of thinking of that because you're the Conan guy to me. You're always your Conan O'Brien. So
I loved Conan growing up. It's interesting. I don't watch much late night TV. I don't really have time for that these days. But when I was a kid and I was first discovering late night TV and I was trying all these different late night guys and checking out what their brand of comedy was like, there was one guy who shone like a beacon in the night, who stood out more than anyone else, and nobody had heard of him at the time. It was this guy, Conan O'Brien. He had just taken over this show called Late Night with Conan O'Brien. He had this guy, Andy Richter, I had never really seen. I know that it's an old thing that Johnny Carson did, is he had a guy sitting next to him, but I had never really seen that on Leno or Letterman where he's got another guy with him. And that guy, a lot of times, is even funnier than Conan. So
yeah, dude, and I just wanted to say, like, you are the guy. The reason I know Conan is because you'd be like, hey, you got to watch Conan. And I'd be like, I can't stay up that late. And you're like, come on, I've taped it. And then you put VCR on and hit play and we'd be watching. And I'm exactly with you. And that's how I fell in love with Conan O'Brien that was the reason. And Conan got fucked. But we'll talk about that sooner than later. Just kind of go on his career. I'd like to kind of maybe next show, we talk about it before his last show. Some of his great memories. Some of the reasons I like Conan, some of the things that he said lately about podcasts killing the late night show.
He has a podcast.
Well, that's what he's switching over to because he wants to make Joe Rogan money, I guess.
Oh, that's interesting.
So we'll talk about it, and I'd just be interested. I just wanted to see.
You've already just sparked a lot of thoughts on this that, you know what, we'll save it for when we do the deep dive into
Conan.
Conan.
Dude, because I thought we were going to cover it today, and I forgot that we didn't cover it. So, yeah, I know the Conan next week, we'll talk Conan because I think if it's in 2 weeks, his last show, maybe before his show, we'll give him a Conan, what we loved about Conan and what should happen with Conan.
It's a good idea. We'll talk about him the week before the end of his show, and we'll put out a video maybe the same day that his show goes off the air. Anyway, guys, thanks for watching. Like, comment, subscribe. Please share the videos that we chop up. It takes a lot of work and effort to do that, so that really helps us if you share. If you see somebody talking about something that we talk about, and we've got a little spliced video of it, maybe let them know what we think. We really appreciate that.
Guys, don't forget, subscribe to the YouTube page as well. Let's see if we can get Adam up there, a couple thousand subscribers. So if you're liking this video, click the subscribe button. Don't forget to hit the little bell so you know when we're live, so you can watch all of our screw-ups like I had today. So make sure you guys like the videos, subscribe, do all that fun stuff.